Emma's wrench slips on the rusted bolt for the third time, scraping her knuckles raw. She curses, wipes blood on her jeans, and stares at the corroded engine panel that's been fighting her for 20 minutes. Her sister Clara stands behind her with the flashlight, illuminating the guts of a 77-year-old tugboat they bought on impulse 3 weeks ago. A boat their father said was a waste of money. A boat their mother would have called reckless. A boat that's about to change everything they thought they knew about their family. The bolt finally gives. The panel swings open with a metallic groan. Behind it, covered in decades of grease and salt corrosion, is a brass plate riveted to the engine mount. Emma leans closer. Clara adjusts the light. The letters emerge through the grime like a message from the dead. Engine Assembly. Giuseppe Marino. Municipal Shipyard. April 1947. Their grandfather's name. Right there, in the heart of a machine they found by accident. That's impossible, Clara whispers. But it's not impossible. It's there. Proof that Giuseppe Marino, the grandfather they never met, the man their father barely speaks about, the ghost who died before their dad turned 9 years old, built this engine with his own hands. And somehow, 77 years later, his granddaughters bought it at a salvage auction without knowing. Emma sits back on the oil-stained floor of the engine room. Her hands are shaking. Not from the cold, not from exhaustion, from the weight of coincidence that feels too precise to be random. "We need to call Dad," she says. 3 weeks earlier, the SS Fortitude looked like a joke. Emma and Clara stood in a salvage yard on a gray Saturday morning, watching a crane lift the rusted tugboat onto the auction platform. The hull was the color of dried blood. The deck was rotted through in places. The wheelhouse windows were shattered. Seagulls had turned the smokestack into a toilet. "It's perfect," Clara said. Emma looked at her younger sister like she'd suggested buying a haunted house. "It's a tetanus shot with a hull. It's a floating cafe. Look at the bones. The structure is solid. We strip it down, restore the deck, put in a kitchen and seating area. Anchor it at the harbor. Tourists will love it." Emma did the math in her head. She'd been doing math in her head since she got laid off from the architecture firm 6 months ago. Severance running out, rent due, resume sent to 43 companies with 0 callbacks. She needed a project, something tangible, something she could control. "How much do you think it'll go for?" Emma asked. 5, maybe 6,000. It's listed as scrap. The auctioneer started the bidding. Emma watched the crowd, mostly contractors looking for metal to salvage, a few maritime hobbyists. Nobody serious. The opening bid was 5,000. One paddle went up, then another. Clara looked at Emma. "We're really doing this?" Emma said. "We're really doing this." Clara raised her paddle. The bidding climbed slowly. 6,000, 7. At 8,000, the other bidders dropped out. The auctioneer called it twice. Emma felt her stomach drop. This was insane. They were buying a 77-year-old rust bucket with money they didn't have to spare for a business that existed only in Clara's imagination. 8,500, Clara said. Sold to paddle 217. They stood there in silence. The crane lowered the boat. Emma looked at Clara. Clara looked at the tugboat. Neither of them said what they were both thinking, that they'd just made either the best or worst decision of their lives, that there was no middle ground, that they were committed now. Their father didn't take it well. "You bought a what?" Michael Marino stood in his kitchen, holding a coffee mug, staring at his daughters like they'd announced they were joining a cult. "A tugboat," Emma said. 1947 harbor tug. We're converting it into a cafe." "With what money?" "Our money. The inheritance from Mom." Michael set down the mug carefully. He'd been careful with everything since his wife died 8 months ago. Careful with words, careful with emotions, careful with the space he occupied, like he was afraid of taking up too much room in a world that no longer included her. "Your mother left you that money for security," he said. "Not for a floating restaurant that'll sink before you serve your first cup of coffee." "It's not going to sink," Clara said. "The hull is solid. We had it inspected." By who? The auctioneer? By a marine surveyor. It needs work, but the structure is sound. Michael shook his head. He looked tired. He'd looked tired for 8 months. Retirement hadn't suited him. Neither had widowhood. He moved through his days like a man waiting for something without knowing what. You want my advice? He said. Sell it. Take whatever you can get and walk away. Emma felt the familiar frustration rise in her chest. Her father had spent his whole life being practical. 30 years at the Port Authority. Steady paycheck, pension, benefits. He'd never taken a risk in his life. Never bet on himself. Never built anything that wasn't guaranteed. We're not selling it, Emma said. We're restoring it. Then you're doing it without my help. He left the kitchen. They heard his bedroom door close. Clara looked at Emma. He'll come around, Clara said. No, he won't. But Emma was wrong. 2 days later, Michael showed up at the salvage yard where they'd had the tugboat towed. He didn't say anything, just climbed aboard with a toolbox and started inspecting the deck. Emma and Clara watched from the dock. Should we say something? Clara whispered. Let him work. Michael moved methodically, testing planks, checking joints, examining the hull plating. He disappeared into the wheelhouse for 20 minutes. When he emerged, his hands were covered in rust and grease. The deck needs to be completely rebuilt, he called down. At least 60% of the planks are rotted through. The wheelhouse is salvageable, but you'll need to replace all the glass and most of the trim. The helm is missing. So is the compass and all the brass fittings. What about the engine? Emma asked. Haven't looked yet. He found the engine room hatch behind the wheelhouse, pulled it open, stared down into darkness. Emma saw something cross his face, something she couldn't read. You coming? He said. They climbed down together. The engine room smelled like oil and stagnant water. Michael clicked on a work light. The beam caught on the massive diesel engine that dominated the space. It was beautiful in a brutal way. All metal and geometry, pipes and valves branching like arteries. The control panel was a constellation of gauges with cracked faces. Michael approached it slowly, ran his hand over the cylinder head. Emma watched him, saw something shift in his posture, like he was remembering something, or recognizing something. Fairbanks Morse diesel, he said. Straight 6, probably 4,200 RPM at full load. They built these to last forever. Can it be restored? Clara asked. Depends on the condition of the internals. Cylinder walls, crankshaft, fuel system. Could be seized, could be salvageable. He moved around the engine, inspecting. This is good work. Whoever assembled this knew what they were doing. He found the control panel, started wiping away grease with a rag from his pocket. Emma and Clara watched. He worked for several minutes cleaning the metal, revealing the original surface beneath decades of grime. Then he stopped. His hand froze on the panel. Emma moved closer. Dad? He didn't answer, just stared at something on the engine mount. Emma squeezed past him to see what he was looking at. The brass nameplate, corroded but legible. Engine assembly, Giuseppe Marino, Municipal Shipyard. April 1947. Emma read it twice. Looked at her father. His face had gone pale. That's Grandpa, she said. Michael nodded slowly. Didn't speak, just stood there with his hand on the panel, staring at his father's name. Clara climbed down, read the nameplate. Oh my God. He built this, Michael said quietly. He assembled this engine. Emma felt something cold spread through her chest. Their grandfather, the man they'd never met, the man their father barely mentioned, the ghost who existed only in a few faded photographs, and the silence that surrounded his memory. He'd built this engine, put his name on it, and 77 years later his granddaughters had bought it without knowing. What are the odds? Clara whispered. Michael shook his head. I don't know. They stood in the engine room in silence. The work light cast long shadows. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness. Emma thought about coincidence, about fate, about the strange mathematics of family and legacy, and the things that wait in the dark to be discovered. "Tell us about him," Emma said. Michael looked at her. "I don't know much. Tell us what you know." He sat down on the engine room floor. Emma and Clara sat across from him. The engine loomed between them like a monument. "He came from Italy," Michael said. "Genoa. Immigrated in '38, right before the war. Got a job at the municipal shipyard in '45. Worked there until he died." "How did he die?" Emma asked. "Industrial accident. Crane cable snapped. He was 34. I was 8. "What was he like?" Michael was quiet for a long time. "I don't remember much. He left for work before I woke up. Came home after I was asleep. I saw him on Sundays sometimes. He was quiet, serious, always tired." "Did he talk about his work?" "Not really. My mother said he was good at it, that he was respected. But he never brought it home. Never talked about the ships or the engines or any of it." Emma looked at the nameplate, at her grandfather's name in brass. "He was proud of this, proud enough to sign it." "I guess so." "We should find out more," Clara said. "About him, about what he did." Michael stood up. "He worked at a shipyard 70 years ago. What's there to find out?" "Everything," Emma said. The Maritime Museum archive smelled like old paper and possibility. Emma and Clara sat at a research table while a librarian brought boxes of shipyard records from the 1940s. Michael had refused to come, said he had things to do, said the past was past. But Emma saw through it. He was afraid of what they might find, afraid of learning about a father he never really knew. The first box contained employment records. Emma found the file. Giuseppe Marino, employee number 472. The details were sparse but revealing. Hired as apprentice fitter in March 1945, promoted to journeyman fitter in January 46, promoted to master fitter in November 46, less than 2 years from apprentice to master. "He was good," Clara said, reading over her shoulder. Emma kept reading. Commendations for exceptional precision, 1947. Commendations for dedication beyond standard duty, 1948 and 49. Final entry. Deceased, industrial accident, March 15th, 1952. She pulled out her phone. Did the math. Giuseppe was 26 when he started at the shipyard, 34 when he died. 8 years. That's all he got. 8 years of work and then nothing. "There's a photo," Clara said. She held up a black and white image. 20 men standing in front of a tugboat in dry dock. They wore work clothes and flat caps. Most were smiling. Giuseppe stood in the second row, third from the left. He was shorter than Emma expected. Compact, dark hair, strong jaw. He wasn't smiling, but he didn't look unhappy. He looked focused. The caption read, "SS Fortitude Crew, April 1947. "That's our boat," Emma whispered. They stared at the photograph, at their grandfather standing in front of the SS Fortitude 77 years ago. Standing there after assembling the engine, after installing the systems, after putting his name inside it. "This isn't coincidence," Clara said. "It has to be." "Does it? We randomly buy a boat at auction. It happens to be the one boat our grandfather worked on, the one boat with his name inside it. What are the statistical odds of that?" Emma didn't answer. She was thinking about her mother, about the inheritance, about how her mother always said things happened for a reason. Emma never believed it. She believed in probability and chance, and the cold mathematics of randomness. But sitting here looking at her grandfather's face, at the boat behind him, she felt the edges of something larger. The librarian brought more boxes. Payroll records showing Giuseppe worked double shifts during the port reconstruction years. Injury reports, minor burns, a crushed finger. Nothing that stopped him from working. A letter of recommendation from the foreman praising his uncommon dedication to craft. In the third box, Clara found a small leather notebook, water-stained. The pages were filled with technical drawings, engine schematics, measurements in Giuseppe's precise handwriting, notes in Italian and broken English, and lists, ship names and dates. SS Fortitude, April 1947, SS Resolute, August 1947, SS Vigilant, December 1947. The list continued for pages, dozens of vessels, each one marked with the date Giuseppe worked on it. On the last page with writing there was a sketch, rough but recognizable. 2 small children, a boy and a girl. Beneath it, in careful letters, La mia familia. My family, Clara translated. Emma felt something catch in her throat. Her grandfather drew his children, kept them in the same book as the ships, the engines, the work that defined his life. We need to talk to someone who knew him, Emma said. The librarian overheard. Frank Kowalski worked at the shipyard back then. He's 81 now. Comes in sometimes for the veterans group meetings. I can get you his contact information. Frank Kowalski lived in a duplex near the old shipyard district. He answered the door moving carefully, like a man whose body had outlasted its warranty. When Emma explained who they were, his face transformed. Giuseppe's granddaughters, he said. Jesus, come in, please. His living room was a museum of shipyard history. Photographs covered the walls. Men in work clothes. Ships in various stages of construction. The harbor as it looked before the modern era. Your grandfather was the best engine fitter I ever worked with, Frank said. And I worked with hundreds over 46 years. He could hear when something was wrong, not see it on a gauge, hear it, like he had perfect pitch for machinery. What was he like? Clara asked. Frank settled into his chair. Quiet, serious, didn't socialize much with the other workers, but when you worked alongside him, you learned. He never cut corners, never rushed. I watched him disassemble an entire fuel injection system because one valve wasn't seated perfectly. Took him 8 extra hours. The foreman told him to leave it. Giuseppe said if it wasn't right, it wasn't finished. Emma leaned forward. Why did he work so much? The records show constant double shifts. Money. He sent most of his wages back to Italy. Had family there, relatives who didn't make it out before the war. He lived in a boarding house near the docks, ate 1 meal a day, worked every shift he could get. We thought he was crazy, but he said he came to America to build something, not just for himself. Did he ever talk about his family? Emma asked. About his son? Frank's expression softened. Not often, but when he did, everything changed. His whole face would light up. He kept a photograph in his lunch pail, showed it to me once, his wife and son. He said he was building a future for them, that every engine he assembled was a brick in the foundation of his son's life. Clara wiped her eyes. Emma felt her own vision blur. How did he die? Emma asked. Frank was quiet for a moment. Crane accident. We were moving a boiler assembly for a coastal freighter. The cable snapped. Giuseppe saw it coming, saw it was going to hit a young apprentice. Kid named Robert Chen, maybe 20 years old. Giuseppe pushed him out of the way, took the impact himself. The room went silent except for the tick of a wall clock. He saved someone, Clara said. Saved him and died doing it. Robert went on to become a marine engineer, had a whole career, named his son Giuseppe, never forgot what your grandfather did. Emma thought about her father, about the story he'd told them, about how Giuseppe left before dawn and came home after dark, about how Michael barely knew him, about the resentment that lived in the silence. But that wasn't the whole story. Giuseppe wasn't absent because he didn't care. He was absent because he cared too much, because he was building something larger than himself, because he understood sacrifice in a way his son never got the chance to learn. There's something else, Frank said. He stood slowly, moved to a bookshelf, pulled down a wooden box. After Giuseppe died, the foreman cleaned out his locker. Found this. He was going to throw it away, but I kept it. Thought maybe someday someone would want it. He opened the box. Inside were letters. A dozen envelopes, yellowed with age, addressed to Maria Marino in Giuseppe's handwriting. Frank handed them to Emma. "He wrote these during his lunch breaks," Frank said. "Never mailed them. I think he was practicing his English, or maybe just talking to her when he couldn't be home. I don't know. But they're yours now." Emma held the letters like they might disintegrate. Clara moved closer. They opened the first one together. April 18th, 1947. My dearest Maria, today we launched the Fortitude. She is strong, beautiful, built to last 100 years. I placed my name inside her in the engine room where only the mechanics will see. I did this so our children will know their father built things that endure. Michelle is 3 years old now. Sophia is 1. They grow so fast. I miss them every day. I leave before they wake. I return after they sleep. But I'm not gone. I am here. In every bolt I tighten, in every system I calibrate. I am building their future with my hands. In the old country I had nothing. Here, I have everything. I have you. I have our children. I have work that matters. Every ship I help build carries cargo that feeds families, moves goods that build cities. I am part of something larger than myself. Tell Michelle and Sophia their papa loves them. Tell them I am building a world where they will not have to work as I do, where they will have education, opportunity, choice. I work so they can dream. Always yours. Giuseppe. Emma's hands trembled. She looked at Clara. Her sister's face was wet with tears. They read the second letter. Dated November 1949. My dearest Maria, Michelle asked you why I am never home. You told me this yesterday, on my 1 day off. I saw the question in his eyes when he looked at me. Who is this man? Why does he not stay? How do I explain to a 5-year-old boy that every hour I work buys him a future I never had? That every engine I assemble is an investment in his life? That my absence is not abandonment, but love in its most practical form? I am not a man of words. I am a man of hands. My love is in the precision of my work, in the quality of what I build, in the money I save for his education. Someday, he will understand. When he is grown, when he has children of his own, he will understand that a father's love is not always in his presence. Sometimes it is in his sacrifice. I promise you, Maria, when the port reconstruction is complete, I will take Sundays off. I will teach him properly, show him how to use tools, how to measure and cut and build, how to understand that quality is not expensive, it is priceless. He has my hands. I see it. Strong hands. Careful hands. I want him to be proud of what we build together. Soon, my love. Soon I will come home before dark. Always yours, Giuseppe. Clara sobbed openly now. Emma felt something break open in her chest. Their father spent his whole life believing Giuseppe chose work over family. But these letters told a different story. Giuseppe was present in the only way he knew how. Present in the sacrifice. In the future he was constructing hour by hour, shift by shift, bolt by bolt. The third letter was dated February 1952, 1 month before he died. My dearest Maria, good news. The foreman has approved reduced hours starting in April. The port reconstruction is nearly finished. The work will slow. I will take Sundays and half of Saturdays off. I am ready to be the father Michelle and Sophia deserve. The father I have not been able to be. I will teach Michelle everything. Not just about engines and tools, but about life. About integrity. About the dignity of work done well. About how a man builds his legacy not in words but in what he creates with his hands. I have saved enough now. Enough for a house. Enough for their education. Enough to stop working double shifts. I am 43 years old. I am tired. But I am grateful. I came to this country with nothing. I will leave my children with everything. Tell Michelle I will teach him to fish. Tell Sophia I will take her to the park. Tell them both their papa is coming home. 1 more month, my love. One more month and I will be the husband and father I have always wanted to be. Always yours, Giuseppe. Emma folded the letter carefully. Her vision was blurred. She thought about her father, about Michael growing up believing his father didn't care, about the resentment that calcified into silence, about how Giuseppe was 1 month away from everything he'd promised. 1 month away from Sundays and fishing and teaching his son, and then the crane cable snapped and all those promises died with him. He never got the chance, Emma said. Frank shook his head. No, he didn't. Does our father know about these letters? I don't think so. Your grandmother died before I could give them to her, and I lost touch with your father after he grew up. I didn't know how to find him. Emma looked at Clara. We need to show him these. He won't want to see them. He needs to see them. They drove to their father's house in silence. Michael answered the door in a bathrobe. It was 2 in the afternoon. Emma felt a spike of worry. He'd been sleeping more since their mother died. Sleeping or just lying in bed staring at the ceiling. Retirement without purpose. Widowhood without direction. We found something, Emma said. They sat at his kitchen table. Emma placed the letters in front of him. Michael looked at them like they were evidence in a trial. What are these? Letters. From Grandpa to Grandma. He wrote them during his lunch breaks at the shipyard. Never mailed them. A foreman kept them after he died. Michael didn't touch them. I don't want to read them. Dad, I don't want to read them because I already know what they say. He was busy. He was working. He was building a future. I've heard it all before. You haven't heard this, Clara said quietly. Emma opened the first letter, started reading aloud. Michael sat rigid in his chair, his jaw clenched, but he didn't stop her. She read all 3 letters. When she finished, the kitchen was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Michael's face was wet. He wiped his eyes roughly, like he was angry at the tears. He was going to teach me, he said. 1 more month and he was going to teach me. He didn't choose work over you, Emma said. He chose work for you. And then he died saving someone else's kid. He died being who he was. Someone who built things. Someone who protected people. Someone who understood that legacy isn't what you say, it's what you do. Michael picked up the letters. Read them again himself. His hands shook. Emma watched her father discover his own father 70 years too late. Watched him realize that the absence he resented was actually presence in a different language. That Giuseppe loved him the only way he knew how. Through sacrifice, through precision, through the things he built to last. I need to see the boat, Michael said. They went together, the 3 of them. The SS Fortitude sat in the salvage yard looking like a relic from another era. Michael climbed aboard slowly, moved to the engine room hatch, descended the ladder. Emma and Clara followed. Michael stood in front of the engine, placed his hand on the casing, stared at the nameplate with his father's name. He built this, Michael said, with his hands, and I never knew. I spent 50 years angry at a ghost, angry at a man who died trying to give me everything. You can know him now, Clara said. Michael looked at his daughters. How? We restore the boat, properly, the way he would have done it. We learn about the work he did, the ships he built, the legacy he left. We finish what he started. He didn't start restoring a boat. He built it and moved on. No, Emma said. He started building a connection with you. He just ran out of time. But we haven't. We can finish it for him. Michael was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded. Okay, we restore it, but we do it right. Period-appropriate materials, original specifications, the way he would have wanted. It'll be expensive, Emma warned. I don't care, I have my pension, I have savings. What else am I going to spend it on? Emma smiled. A floating cafe. A memorial, Michael corrected. That also serves coffee. The restoration took 18 months. Michael hired a marine restoration specialist named David Chen. When David heard the story, heard about Giuseppe saving Robert Chen, he went pale. "Robert Chen was my grandfather," David said. "He told me about Giuseppe Marino my whole life, said he owed his entire existence to a man who pushed him out of the way of a falling boiler. I'm only here because of your grandfather." The circle closed. Giuseppe's granddaughters and the grandson of the man he saved, working together to restore the boat Giuseppe built. Emma didn't believe in fate, but she was starting to believe in something. In the way stories echo across generations, in the way debts get paid in unexpected ways, in the way legacy works like gravity, pulling people together across time. They worked every day. Michael taught Emma and Clara how to use tools properly, how to measure twice and cut once, how to understand that quality is not expensive, it is priceless. He repeated Giuseppe's words without knowing they were Giuseppe's words. The lessons had been passed down through silence and example, through the way Michael approached work even though he'd never learned it directly from his father. Emma learned to weld. Clara learned to work with wood. They stripped 70 years of paint and corrosion, rebuilt the deck with period-appropriate oak, reconstructed the wheelhouse from photographs and blueprints, sourced original brass fittings from maritime salvage companies across the country. The engine was the heart of it. David disassembled it completely. Every component cleaned, measured, assessed. Michael worked alongside him, learning the systems his father had mastered, learning the language of machinery, understanding for the first time what Giuseppe did every day, the precision required, the knowledge needed, the skill involved. "He was an artist," Michael said one afternoon, holding a perfectly machined valve. "I thought he was just a worker, but this is art." They found more surprises as they worked. Behind a panel in the wheelhouse, Clara discovered a small metal box. Inside were photographs, Giuseppe with his crew, Giuseppe standing next to completed engines, Giuseppe holding infant Michael, one of the only photos where he was smiling. And at the bottom, a pocket watch. Silver case tarnished. Emma opened it. The inscription read, "To Giuseppe, for building our future. Maria, 1947. Michael held the watch, wound it carefully. The mechanism caught, then started ticking. Still worked, still keeping time after 77 years. "He carried this every day," Michael said. "Checked it during breaks, counted the hours until he could come home, and I thought he didn't care about being home." Emma put her arm around her father. "He cared. He just showed it differently." The engine was the last piece. They installed it together, lowering it into place with a crane, bolting it to the mounts Giuseppe had installed 77 years ago, connected the fuel lines, the cooling system, the electrical components, calibrated the timing, adjusted the valves. On a cold morning in December, with Frank Kowalski and David Chen and a crowd of maritime workers watching, Emma turned the key. The engine coughed, sputtered, then caught. The sound was deep and rhythmic, mechanical heartbeat. Smoke puffed from the stack. The whole boat vibrated with life. Michael stood in the engine room with his hand on the casing, felt the warmth of combustion, felt the precision of 77-year-old engineering still functioning perfectly because Giuseppe Marino built it to last. "He's here," Michael whispered. Emma stood next to her father. He never left. They took the SS Fortitude out for its maiden voyage on a Sunday. The harbor was calm, the sky was clear. Frank sat in the wheelhouse telling stories. David monitored the engine. Michael took the helm. Emma and Clara stood on the deck watching the city slide past. The boat moved through the water like it remembered, like the decades of disuse were just sleep. The engine ran smooth. Everything worked the way Giuseppe designed it to work. Michael steered past the old shipyard, now converted to condominiums, past the docks where his father worked double shifts, past the place where the crane cable snapped and Giuseppe pushed a young man out of the way and died doing it. Emma watched her father, saw something in his face she hadn't seen in years, not just since her mother died, since before that, since maybe ever. Purpose, connection, peace. The SS Fortitude became what Clara envisioned, a floating cafe and museum. The upper deck served coffee and pastries. The engine room was preserved as a memorial. Giuseppe's nameplate mounted in a glass case. His letters displayed on the walls. Photographs of the shipyard. The crew. The post-war reconstruction. A plaque near the entrance read, "In memory of Giuseppe Marino and all who built the post-war fleet. Men who loved through their hands, not their words. Men who built things that lasted." Visitors came, veterans, shipyard workers, immigrants who understood what it meant to build a future with your hands. They shared stories, added photographs, made the memorial grow. Michael volunteered as docent 3 days a week. He told Giuseppe's story, showed visitors the engine, explained how a Fairbanks Morse diesel worked, taught them about riveted construction and brass fittings and the craftsmanship that defined an era. Emma ran the business side, permits, licenses, marketing. She was good at it, better than architecture. This felt real, tangible, connected to something that mattered. Clara managed the cafe, created a menu inspired by Italian immigrant food, simple, honest, made with care, the kind of food Giuseppe would have recognized. One Sunday, 6 months after the opening, Emma found her father sitting alone in the engine room. He was holding the pocket watch, just sitting there, listening to it tick. "You okay?" she asked. Michael looked up. "I was just thinking about all the years I was angry, about how much time I wasted resenting him, and now I'd give anything for one conversation, one chance to tell him I understand, that I'm sorry, that I'm proud to be his son." Emma sat next to him. "I think he knows." "How?" "Because you finished what he started. You learned his work. You honored his legacy. You became the man he was trying to teach you to be. That's the conversation. That's what you're telling him every day." Michael nodded slowly. "Your mother would have loved this. The boat, the cafe, the whole thing." "She does love it," Emma said, "wherever she is." They sat in silence. The engine ticked as it cooled. The boat rocked, gently. Above them, the cafe hummed with conversation. The sound of life, of connection, of legacy continuing. Michael stood, placed the pocket watch back in its display case, ran his hand over the nameplate one more time. "Thank you," he said quietly. "To Giuseppe, to Maria, to Emma and Clara, to everyone who helped build this, to the strange mathematics of fate that brought them here." Emma hugged her father. "We should get back up. Clara needs help with the lunch rush." "In a minute. I just want to stay here a little longer." Emma climbed the ladder, left her father alone with the engine, with his father's work, with the legacy that waited 77 years to be discovered. Michael stood in the engine room, placed both hands on the casing, closed his eyes, felt the metal, the history, the love that lived in precision and sacrifice in things built to last. "I understand now," he whispered. "I understand everything." The engine room was silent, but Michael felt the answer. In the metal, in the machinery, in the warmth of work done well. "I know, son. I always knew you would." Michael smiled, wiped his eyes, climbed back up to the deck, back to his daughters, back to the cafe they built together, back to the life that grew from a rusted tugboat and a brass nameplate and the discovery that love doesn't always speak. Sometimes it builds. Sometimes it endures. Sometimes it waits in the dark for 77 years until someone finally understands the language. The SS Fortitude rocked gently in the harbor, strong, enduring, built to last 100 years, just like Giuseppe promised. If you enjoyed this story of legacy and redemption, subscribe to our channel for more incredible true tales.